So this one, nothing really that special about the art. Obviously, to a pyromaniac like me, having any fire effect on there is going to be an improvement over the standard art. I quite like the sort of smoke that's in the background as well. It's quite atmospheric, isn't it? Like a lot of the Invade art, the obviously the Daedras don't look particularly pleasant. I suppose this one's got a sort of fluidity to the movement though. And that one, the interplay of the light is actually an improvement, so I'll say the premium's the better of the two. This one does get used in self-harm decks as well to actually buff up other creatures by when it extinguishes them, so it's not always used solely in invade decks, but definitely the interplay of the light in the background is quite atmospheric, so that's a big improvement on the standard version. This one, a very popular card, particularly aggro. Quite like the sort of standard art on this, however it's not really a patch on the snow effect. I mean, that's just beautiful, isn't it? And the interplay of the light on the weapon as well. I remember crafting the snowy version of this for Schwald's Christmas special a couple of years ago, when we were basically looking to play decks which had mainly cards with snow and ice themes on them. So I crafted these as premium purely for that event. Again, a very popular card. The art on it's okay. There is an alternative art version which sadly I don't own, which I think is a bit better though. Yeah, it's quite a subtle sort of premium version. It's okay, it's not anything special, but I do like the card. A nice snowy theme here. This support doesn't see a huge amount of play anymore, but definitely the snowy version on the premium. I mean, that's way better, isn't it? Just look at how beautiful that is. You've got the sense of movement with the snow and the way the sort of lights just there's a bit of light and dark going on there as well. So again, I crafted this one for Schwald's Christmas special a couple of years ago when I was playing some snowy decks. I had a game where I just kept getting Northwind Outpost rather than creatures, so obviously lost that game, but that doesn't detract from how pretty the card is. I always like the archery cards because they have such a satisfying sound when you have the archery sound. The art on this is quite good. But when you see this, it's just so much more atmospheric, isn't it? This is one of those cases where the premium is way better than the standard version. Not really a great fan of the art on this. Again, very popular card. I think I'm just a sucker for the snow and also the fire effects on a lot of these cards, and that one just looks way better to me. Now this doesn't get played a lot because normally you put it on a creature, you get one rally and then it gets them either silenced or the creature gets killed. But I remember playing this a lot when I was in the middle tier, and so I've got kind of affection for it really. Quite a nice piece of art there, but again you've got more atmosphere going on here. The interplay of light, it's just better. I do sometimes still equip this item, particularly if I've got an aggro deck with some creatures with poor health. It's quite useful sometimes you can get a couple of rounds off before it gets eliminated. Not someone you'd want to kind of meet in a dark alley somewhere, is he? The art on this is okay. Nothing special, but nothing, it's not bad, it's not particularly exciting either. And there's not a huge amount extra going on with the premium, it's just a little bit of light on the blade, really. Again, this is, I mean, it's okay, but there's nothing particularly exciting about the art on this one. Got a nice flame effect going on there, but the rest of the art's, as I said, not particularly exciting. So I do actually prefer this alt alternative art version. I think it's just more interesting. Okay, it's fairly subtle in terms of the movement going on in the background. The art overall is just better. I forget which event I got that from. Now this is very popular, particularly when it's paired with Pilfer decks. Gets that extra bit of damage in. I do quite like the art on this. But that one just beats it because it's got the fire in the background there and you've got the light shining through. It's just a bit more atmospheric, isn't it? Shieldbreaker, the art's okay on this. I mean, there's not a huge amount you can say about it, really, is there? But again, although I'm not a great fan of the art, just the sense of movement and the light's a bit more enhanced on this version, so it is a lot more attractive. Still not massively my cup of tea, but there's more interest going on in this one. Now this is an old favourite from when I was a newbie. I used to like playing this card a lot because he says they will perish in flames, although sometimes he'll say let's heat things up. It depends what lane. I used to think it was if you put it in the field lane it would say perish in flames, but it seems to be quite random. But I like both the lines that it has. And that's just a little bit better than the original because you've got the nice flame effect going on in the background and the sparks sort of rising up as well. It just creates more of a point of interest in the card. Skeevers are great fun to play on ladder. If you've never tried playing a deck with Skeevertron in it, I'd recommend trying to do it before TESL finishes. It's good fun. They're also really good in a transmogrify deck. Again, this is a case where the premium version just seems a lot better. You've got the interplay of the light and the contrast between the dark and the light areas on the card with that green smoke. It's just a lot more interesting, isn't it? Now this is one that back before everything became only one gold in TESL, this is one that I always wanted to craft in premium but never did because it's not something I played a lot of, but the premium is totally beautiful in my book, so while this is okay, let's just take a moment to gaze hypnotically at this. I mean, that's a Pyromaniac's dream, isn't it? So you can see why I was tempted to still craft it, even though I was never likely to play it. Just purely to gaze at that. Of course, now everything's 1 gold. I was able to get it really cheap. So I can gaze at it to my heart's content. Just lovely, really. That and Thieves' Den, they're both excellent, very hypnotic cards. If I was to set up a top 10 TESL hypnotic cards sort of league table, those two would be in the top 5, definitely. Okay, Stone's Throw. I mean, there's not a huge amount of interest here. There's not much you can really say about this card. It's quite popular in aggro decks. That makes it a little bit more interesting, so you've got the sense of fluidity and movement, but I'm still not a great fan of the art, personally. Now here's a guy who can be pretty annoying when you're up against Naught deck. You get one shot, make it good, and then he destroys your big creature if they've got a big board, and the art's okay on this, I have to say. I do prefer the premium version. Just a bit more interest going on here. Whenever I'm up against orcs, I always think, oh no, please don't let them have him in hand, because it's a real nuisance if they get lots of build a board and they have lots of them. They can just quite cheaply kill your big creatures. So, but leaving that aside, there's quite a lot of interest going on in the card. You've got the light in the background and the sense of movement in the foreground. It's one of the better orc arts, in my opinion. Stormcloak Camp. I've never really played this card myself, but I have seen others play it with great success. Quite nice art on this one, but I actually think the premium, admittedly I'm biased, it's got the snow effect again, but I think the premium is that little bit more interesting. When I think of this card, I think of a particular game I was playing against a Taunter, actually. They were convinced they were going to be able to kill me because they had the Stormcloak Camp up. But I had support removal because I was playing one of my, I think it was Ebon Guards, and I had loads of support killers in there, and I just kept taking them down. And then the last one, I let it kill them, so it was quite funny. Another orc card. Not really anything that exciting going on here, is there? That's a big improvement because you've got the flame effect and also the snow as well. So definitely in this case, I know in this particular, talking about strength cards, quite often I preferred the standard version, but this is one where I actually do think the premium is much nicer. Again, this doesn't tend to get played a lot because there are other sort of actions that are more popular. The art on it's okay, but when you compare it to this, it's just way more intense, isn't it? You've got the icy surroundings and the light emanating. It's just a lot more intense and pleasing on the eye. This is a very fun card. It's a pity I can't. I'll have to try and capture a game with him transforming. It's quite good fun when he transforms. You can get him in tandem with Imposter's Mission. Yeah, there's not a huge amount going on with this premium version, is there? Not a great fan of the art on this one. I suppose it's a bit dingy and dark in the background, isn't it? Now this looks a lot better because obviously you've got the flame and light effect around the arrow. It just makes it more bright and more definition in the card, so I think that's way better than the original. You'd like to think that a lot of these premiums would be way better than the original, but not all of them are. Some of them you don't have as much definition. But this is definitely a case of one that is better. It's one of my darlings, Withered Hand Cultist. And I don't think anyone would be surprised that I actually prefer this version because it's got the flame effect in it. That just appeals to my pyromaniac's heart. I like the fact that it's not just the flame effect here, you also got the sort of light going on here as well. It sort of moves up like that. I've got a soft spot for werewolves because I used to play werewolves a lot when I was a newbie. Again, this one's a little bit more subtle. There's not a huge amount going on. You've got a bit of movement in the greenery in the background, and obviously the weapon is highlighted. They probably could have done a bit more to make more points of interest in this card. This is one of my darlings. If there's an Ebon deck, he's always in here, just because he's always very useful. You get the instant win with having at least one rally go off before it gets taken out. This is a case where I do prefer the original though, because you can actually see the characters' features a bit better, whereas on this version, much as you've got a bit of smoke and stuff, you just can't see the definition as well. Quite like the art on this one. It's a fun card to run, and nice to get a free item out of it. It's just that this, with the sort of contrast in the background, is just way better. The sense of movement behind him, and then you get the gleam on the dagger as well. So I'm not a great fan of the Ash Berserker art. Admittedly, it's not his fault that he looks like that, but it just doesn't really. It's not one of those cards that I think, oh, I must have a copy of that. The fire effect helps a little bit, but it's still not a favourite of mine. But it is a very useful card if you can get it set up properly. This is one of the better orc cards. He goes, "Face me and die," and that. It's just really satisfying if you're able to get him to get the buff on there as well. Obviously, this has got the sort of effect around the blade, and then you've got the snow in the background, so it's just that little bit more interesting to look at, isn't it? Yeah, this always makes me laugh. I like the sound that Bog Lurcher makes when it comes out. I'll have to see if I can get around to recording some of the sounds. Just could be fun. I mean, it's okay, the premium version. You can see the water moving a bit and the light on the creature. I probably like them both about equally, though. This one, I think I do actually prefer the standard version. It's just look a little bit more defined. The colours just appear a little bit more faded in this. Probably because of the way that they've done the light effect. It's quite subtle, but it's just the standard version looks a bit nicer to me. Now this is a very fun card. And I like the colour in the art on this. It's just that this effect here is so much more powerful. So I definitely prefer the premium of that. It's one of my darlings. There's a bit of a debate in some of Schwartz's community about whether this was a male or a female. I think the consensus came out it was a female, but the voice doesn't sound female particularly. It sounds more male, but who knows? I do actually prefer, if you look at the premium version, as good as it is, I actually feel that the face is a little bit more defined on the standard version. Just go back a sec. Yeah, the face is just so much easier to see, so I actually prefer the standard version for that. I think because the way that the sort of light effect is going on the weapon, it just obscures the face slightly. Always a very useful card. I think I've made this a bit more interesting though. I wouldn't say it was, when you consider how much some of the premiums cost. I mean, this one, before the game was shut down, cost a substantial amount. I don't think people were really getting. I mean, it's a good card to have, but it's very useful utility-wise. But I don't think it was really doing anything special for the extra gems. Again, this is a case where I think I prefer the standard version to the sort of expensive premium version. I suppose it wasn't that expensive because it wasn't one of the really costly ones. It's just that when you look at this one, the effect on the face means that it's less defined. So although it's nice to have the flame effect here, you can't see the face as well. So for me, the standard version is better. Here's another one of my darlings. Again, I do think I prefer the standard version on this because I think it's much more defined. We look at here. Yes, you do have that sort of contrast of the light and dark, but I just think you've got more consistency and it's just more consistent looking at the face on that on the other one. This is quite a fun looking card, isn't it? You've got the tiny little person trying to attack the giant. A bit like a David and Goliath sort of idea there, isn't it? I do like the effect around the dagger and the movement in the clouds in the background, because obviously the giant would actually be up quite tall and in the clouds, and you can even see the movement of the giant's hair. So I like the attention to detail on this one. Now this lady actually has seen a bit more ladder play in recent months. I've seen her quite often in Ebon Slay. She tends to come out late game. It's quite a dark card, which I much prefer when there's a bit more light to the card, but actually the art's quite atmospheric. I actually think I prefer the original. I think in this respect, I think the way that the angle of the light's coming down, it doesn't really add a huge amount of interest to the card. Now that's a Pyromaniac's Dream, isn't it? Quite good art on that, but it obviously can't compete with this, can it? I think I better have to. I think ages ago, a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I did actually do a deck that was all just around fire effects. But that was before I was recording videos. I might have to do another sort of fire effect video before TESL closes. That'd be fun. Flame Spear. Very nice looking dragon. I think, although I do like the fire effect in this, I do prefer the definition on the standard version. Having said that, it is a very fun card, particularly if you can get lethal on it with, like, use Skooma Racketeer to put lethal on it. That can be great fun, because then every time your opponent puts a creature down, it ends up dead. One of the heroes, the true heroes of TESL. Essential in any deck that's fighting against greed. It's quite a subtle premium, this one. The fire effect, and not a huge amount going on extra. I do quite like this one. Not just because he's a useful card, but I quite like the premium on this. I've never played this card, but I have seen some people in particularly very greedy late game decks playing it. Even though it's got a nice sort of snow effect on it, it's a little bit too muted for my tastes. Again, I've often seen taunt as well in this one, and it's always funny when you're actually able to take it down. When they put it up, they're thinking they're going to get you, and they can take it down quite quickly. But it's also funny if it actually kills them as well. That's happened a few times. I do quite like the art on it. I do like grappling hook, particularly in arena when you're actually not able to craft an optimal deck. It's actually good fun if you get that in arena. A good form of removal, and also keeping your own creatures alive. Nice snow effect, and a nice effect on the hook itself as well. This is one that doesn't get a lot of play as well. The art's okay on it. But I have seen it on ladder, and actually I've seen it on ladder this month, so January 25. The fire effect does improve it a bit. But it's still not, I think, it's still not a favourite of mine. It's okay. Not really a huge amount to say about this one. It's okay. It's nothing thrilling, is it? And not a huge amount going on in the background with this, so it's kind of a blah or a mer sort of one. Hit and run. I know some people say this card's unplayable. I do occasionally see people run it, but not often. I'm just not really a fan of the art on it. And look at that, it would have been, before the game was closing, it would have been 1600 gems. Definitely not worth that. Now this is a favourite of mine again. I do like Imposter's Mission. I do have a... I can't remember if it's on my channel, it might be on Schwartz's channel. I remember doing a game, some games with a Imposter's Mission deck, and I paired it with Ebon Thread Cloak. I think I prefer the standard version actually, just because there's more definition on it. Yeah, I played it with Ebon Thread Cloak, so basically put some big bodies out, then do the imposter so it actually has the same health as the hit power on the big bodies, and health, and obviously it matches both. And then stick an Ebon Thread Cloak on it so that it can't be jabbed the next round. I know it takes a little bit of setup, but it's good fun if you can pull it off. And even better if your opponent chucks it back to your hand, it comes out as a 1 cost, but it still has the big stats on it, so a really good card. It's worth the setup if you want to play something fun. Quite like the art on this one. I have actually I had already before the game was announced was closing. I did actually craft the premium version of it purely for playing again in Schwartz's Christmas special a couple of years ago, because it's kind of a snow effect, and so it featured in one of my snowy decks I was playing for the Christmas special. This card always makes me laugh. It's always funny when you see it. It gives the opponent something to have to scramble to avoid because it deals damage to them. He does look quite sinister with his eyes glowing red like that, doesn't he? I mean, there's not a huge amount going on, but I think extra points for the scary red eyes. Again, this is one that makes me laugh. I know it gets mainly played in invade decks, but it's also good fun in non-invade decks if you're running an imposter's mission because it's quite cheap for, and then you end up with a 7/7, so it's actually quite good fun. I have actually seen people run this with invade and also run it with, is it Giant's Camp, I think, as well, to be particularly evil. It's just a fun card. Doesn't have to be an invade deck, of course. Another very good card, particularly obviously in Orc decks, but anything that involves buffing or items. And I just prefer the premium for this one because there is a lot more of a sense of movement in the background. Very rarely see this one played, if at all. I mean, maybe in arena occasionally. That's actually way better than the original. I like the flames in the background and just the ambience and the sense of the light on his armour. Another very fun card, obviously very easy to kill. I actually think I prefer the standard version. It's just again, it's got that bit more definition, stands out more than that. It's often very useful sort of extra damage in Orc decks. But I do prefer, funnily enough, sometimes you have the special effects around a card and they actually make the card look more defined, sometimes they don't. In this instance, I'd say it definitely makes the axe look more defined. So I prefer the premium version on that. Good sense of movement here when you've got the sense of the impact there on the shield. I mean, that's a nice effect with the fire and all, but I actually think the card has more definition and looks just better as a standard than as a premium. Not a great fan of the art on this. It's not anything particularly special. Even with the effects on there, it's nothing particularly special.
Let nothing through! Close ranks! They will fall before my blade.
This one thanks you.
Thank you.